What if I told you, what if everything you were told about President Biden, his health, his mind, his ability to lead, was a carefully crafted lie? What if the decline wasn't sudden, but it was obvious and ignored? What if people in charge, like the media, the party, even his inner circle, knew the truth and they chose to hide it from you? Now the truth is leaking out in books, through whistleblowers, but why now? And why did it take so long? So today we're going to pull back the curtain on what might be the biggest political cover-up of our time, and we're going to ask what it means. What does it mean not just for America, but what it means for the church, for our culture, and the soul of a nation?
Kingdom and culture.
Hey, I'm Pastor Nathan Hurst, and thank you once again for joining us here at Kingdom and Culture Podcast. And I believe we're on episode 11 or somewhere in there. And today, again, we're talking about President Biden, his health, his mental health, and the obvious cover-up of his decline that happened over many years. And the decline was obvious. It was obvious long before 2020 in the campaign. There was evidence of his mental decline in the 2019 debates. You could see him working through answers and he couldn't quite muster them up. You could see the confusion on his face. You could see the pause and he didn't finish his thoughts or didn't finish the sentence. And then you could see him forgetting names and dates and other important information. America saw it and the media denied it. You know, Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 9 says this: whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but those who make his way crooked will be found out. The reality is these things are always found out. You can't hide it, especially in the media age. The Bible said it before there was ever cell phones and the internet and the technology to pull information instantly and share with the world. And now we're seeing it hyper sped up that you can't keep these lies very long. And when leaders lack transparency, it shatters trust in the nation, trust in the media, trust in the office, trust in our institutions, and truth will always resurface. We have to remind ourselves that we are not beyond truth and truth will always come up. But his inner circle covered it up. In fact, we're finding new details in the book Original Sin, a book that's just been published, I think co-authored by Jake Tapper of CNN, that show his team, Biden's team, was shielding him. They were limiting him, especially in unscripted appearances. We saw this during the run-up to the 2020 presidential race, where he was doing a lot of interviews from his basement. The questions were pre-scripted beforehand. Many times those interviews were cut up and chopped up and jump cut so that we didn't see the full length of the interview. There was definitely an attempt to cover up his cognitive decline. And now the evidence is coming out. Now the whistleblowers are blowing and we're seeing true hardened evidence that this was going on. Now, many of us knew what was going on. We thought it was obvious, but at the time you were labeled as someone who was, at war with democracy. You're a conspiracy theorist, that you're just trying to pick your guy as the winner rather than just speaking truth in the moment. They weren't preserving strength when they were hiding and covering up Biden and his decline. They were trying to preserve an image. They were hoping that you'd be more reminiscent of the Joe Biden of the past and not Joe Biden in that moment. Numbers 32:23 says, be sure your sin will find you out. The truth in that scripture is paramount for today. Your sin will find you out. This isn't about politics alone. It's a warning to every believer that lies catch up with us even when you're in power and you think you've coalesced enough power to shield you from the hurt of your lies. They will find you out. Man, that brings us to his presidency and the Hur interview. If you're not familiar with that, you can Google Hur interview. But in that interview, he was someone who, as a president and leader of the nation, couldn't recall when he had been vice president, or he couldn't recall that his son had died. And that's troubling, but it's mostly tragic that his mind had debilitated to such a degree that he could not remember some of these basic and even core memories of his life, where he was confused about the details. See, the media basically said that he was having a bad day. It wasn't his best interview. But the American people were not blind. We saw what we saw. We knew what was going on. Psalms chapter 101 and verse 7 says this: no one who participates in deceit will dwell in my house, and no one who utters lies shall continue before my eyes. Listen, we have to understand God is a God of truth and that we should be speakers and seekers of truth. We don't need perfect leaders, but we definitely need honest ones. Now, you can say whatever you want about the current administration, the current leadership. Maybe you have some issues with what they've said, or you feel they've been feeding you lies. Hey, I'm all for it. Flesh that out. Push it, call it out for what it is. But we can't ignore this. We can't ignore that we were lied to. We can't ignore that the media and all of those in his inner circle and everyone close to him told us, no, he's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't look at it. It's not an issue. Look over here. Look how bright, shiny Biden is. Don't look at the issues that are at play. Don't look at the fact that he's stumbling around, can't get through a speech. There's nothing wrong with him. Perfectly fine. You're just ageist. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And then that we turn the corner now as the book's coming out. And just as the book's coming out, there's the bombshell of his stage 4 prostate cancer that I believe has metastasized into his bones. And now they're using that as a shield to say, we can't talk about this. We can't talk about his decline. We can't talk about the cover up. We can't talk about the issues associated with the cover up and those who knew, the potentially hundreds of people who could see that he was on a cognitive decline, that his body was failing him. It's a frustrating thing, right? I want to be sensitive to the fact that, yes, this man, the president, former president, who should be honored for the position that he held, has a stage 4 cancer, prostate cancer that has metastasized. As a Christian, we need to be praying for him. We need to be lifting him up in prayer and believing God for healing, whether it comes through medical intervention or whether it comes through miraculous intervention. We need to be believing God for healing, because this is a serious, tragic, and most of the time fatal diagnosis. This isn't something that people generally come back from. So obviously we need to be praying for the president. However, when asked, like, why wasn't he going through proper screenings? Why wasn't this caught earlier? He was president. He had access to the best doctors in the entire world. How come he wasn't better cared for? One of the insiders said that we didn't do early screenings because it was expensive. And they've said now that it was like 10 years since the last time President Biden had been screened for prostate cancer. This is ridiculous. I don't believe that one bit, 1 cent at all. This is an absolute absurdity. He's the president of the United States, the largest, most powerful nation, largest in power and prestige, most powerful nation on the planet, in the world. Nothing that we have at our disposal shouldn't have been given to him as president, as leader of the free world, to make sure and to trust that he is a healthy president and can do the job. So absolutely absurd. I don't believe it 1 cent, one bit or another, but we have to ask the question, why is the lie persisting? We have to pray for Biden. We have to pray against this failing body that he's living in, that his soul also needs God's grace. His family needs God's grace to work through this. Cancer has now affected him and his son. Again, unless an amazing medical intervention or unless there's divine intervention, this is something that could easily take his life. That would be 2 men in the Biden family taken out recently within the last 15, 20 years from cancer. So this is a huge issue for the Biden family. Yes, we need to be those who are compassionate to what they're going through. And yes, we need to pray for them. And yes, God, we hope that he survives this and makes a quick recovery. However, it doesn't stop us from asking the hard questions. I don't think we need to grill President Biden, but we need to grill those around him. We need to grill those in charge. We need to point our fingers at the media and ask, why didn't you do your job? Now, there's historical parallels here. FDR and Wilson, both presidents they couldn't hide their health issues. But it's worse because here the mind and the body were failing. And I believe everyone knew it. Everyone knew it. I think everyone could see it. Most folks were living in some kind of cognitive decline, or at least a segment of the population. They didn't want to see it. You don't want to see your leaders sick. When we first started to plant this church that we're pastoring here in Davenport, Iowa, I was told by a mentor of ours as we were planting that you never tell the people you're sick because they don't want to see their leadership sick. And this individual had actually suffered through cancer himself, and in suffering through it had gone through the process with his local congregation. And the moment he told them he was sick, people left. And within a short amount of time, the church was really struggling. They worked through it. They battled through it. They came back. I wish people were different. It's the nature and the psychology of people. They don't want to see their leadership sick. And unfortunately, I do believe that's why a lot of people turn their heads, even though we have seen presidents sick before, and FDR and Wilson, obviously not in our lifetime, or I don't think any of us, maybe a few when you're younger. But for most of us, we haven't seen a president sick like that. And maybe we've seen a president in distress and shot, or we saw Kennedy obviously assassinated. Reagan was shot, didn't know if he was going to make it through that, but he did. He pulled through. But we were all cheering on the president in those situations because those were instances that were beyond their control, and it didn't look like sickness was overtaking them. It's a one thing quickly happened, and you again pray for the best outcome. But in Biden's situation, it was that slow, steady cognitive decline. It's the slow, steady deteriorating of his body, and it's obvious to everyone. It's hard to watch someone that you love, let alone a leader, walk through that and decline. So I get it. I get why people didn't necessarily want to own up to it. As believers, we have to call our leaders to truth. Light always reveals the darkness. Even when darkness is covering a truth that needs to be exposed, light is the only way to bring that into focus. And so we have to be those who shed light on even the hardest situations and circumstances. So there was also the role of the media and the Democratic Party in this cover-up. The media ran cover. The DNC propped him up, and critics were smeared as conspiracy theorists or anti-democracy. And it's just flat out deception. In fact, I'd say it's beyond deception. It was deliberate. They knew what they were doing. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 50 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness." When truth is redefined, freedom crumbles. Let me help you understand that. When truth is redefined, freedom in this country starts to erode, eviscerate, and crumble. This isn't about politics. This is really a spiritual issue. We have a soulish issue as a country. We are redefining truth as quickly as we can. We're saying that, you know what? It doesn't matter what you were born as. It doesn't matter what God intended you as. You can pick and choose your own sexuality. Nothing could be a deeper lie. You can't choose. You can play dress up. You can put on makeup. You can cut off body parts, but you're never going to be that opposite gender. That's just the facts, the reality of life. We don't have to necessarily everyone agree on that. You could live in a delusion if you want to, but the reality is, the truth is, when your bones are nothing but bones and they go do a DNA test on your bones, they're going to find out whether you're a man or a woman, and it's going to be exactly what you were born into this world as. It won't matter the amount of plastic that you've heaped up on your physical body. It won't matter what body parts you cut off. Truth is truth, and at its core, at its bare minimum, the truth will be exposed. So we have to be folks who call out the media, who call out the parties. Don't run cover for these individuals. Don't run cover when things are hard or difficult, or when the lie is so extreme and it's so very obvious. Don't run cover. Be honest, be truthful. Now, why does this matter? And why is timing everything? Well, this book, The Original Sin, is just dropped, and it's a bombshell for the Democrat Party. They've got some real soul searching to do. Can we trust them? Can we trust any of our political leaders who hid Biden's decline? I don't think so. In fact, I think every one of them should be primaried if we can at all in this next election cycle, the midterms that are coming up. We need to ask hard questions. We need folks to challenge them. Why would you hide this from the American people? Was it just to keep power, or were you actually interested in the best of this nation, or was it just to keep your guy in the seat? Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20, as we said, tells us that we can't call evil good and good evil. We can't act like things were good when they weren't. We can't cover and act like the lies were truth when they weren't. We need to know what's real and what's honest. Sin is always going to be exposed. There's no way that you're going to get away with this in a long time. So they didn't find their conscience just instantly and decide to put this book out. No one got a breath of truth and decided, okay, finally, now I'm going to tell the truth. No, they lost control of the narrative, and try to redefine and redirect. They're pushing it out, sacrificing Joe Biden and family at the altar of politics, even during this difficult time, because they're trying to rewrite the narrative. Understand, it's not about finding conscience. It's about redefining the narrative. So what does this mean for us? Well, hopefully you understand this episode isn't a political hit job. It's a wake-up call that truth matters. Be honest. Be truthful. The truth is, Biden is a man made in God's image. His body is failing. He's aging. He's broken, like we all are. And he needs God's grace now more than ever. He needs our grace. In fact, I think we need to be very reverent of President Biden and the family as they go through these difficult issues. That doesn't mean we don't call out the institutions of power, the political institutions, the media, for hiding from us what was very, very evident, or trying to hide from us what was very, very evident. But while the world spins its lies, God deals in truth. And in his kingdom, there is no deception, only truth. And that's the only thing that stands now and forever. So the truth will find its way. God's kingdom will find a way always and forever. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7 says this: "Not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever you sow, that also will you reap." Let's be honest. There's been folks in this process who have sown a whole bunch of garbage and issues and lies and problems, and they are going to reap the whirlwind. It is coming, whether they like it or not. There are media institutions that are going to fail. There are names in the media and in politics who are going to be erased from the public ledger. Why? Because they lied and they hid, and the American people and truth will not stand for it. And that's what we need more of. We need more of the truth. Hopefully got something out of this episode. Hopefully you understand this is an intersection of faith and culture and how we should deal with things that are in front of us. Again, pray for President Biden, pray for the Biden family, but also call out the fallacies, call out the falsehoods, call out for truth when it's appropriate. Call out for truth when we want to know exactly where we're being lied to, exactly what is truth and what isn't. Find a way to get past the fluff and the clutter and find the truth of any given situation. Again, that's the most important thing. Hey, hope you got something out of it. We love you.